Hey everybody, and welcome back to Tenza Motorsports. Today I want to talk about why you shouldn't buy an M3. Now, this kind of goes two ways. So if you are going to daily drive or if you want to buy a car to collect, then yeah, absolutely. An M3, the E46 would be a fantastic car for you to buy and hold on to. The ZHP, maybe a low mileage loaded, really nice 330. Those are perfect cars to keep and hold on to. But those of you who know my channel, we do a lot of really heavy modifications to some of these BMWs. And today I want to talk about why a lower model BMW would probably be your best bet if you want to do something that's a full build. Now, behind me here, you can see, if you're not familiar, this is a 325 Touring, a wagon that we recently swapped an S54 into. The build isn't done, as you can see as well. We actually put all M3 parts, like every M3 part that would fit from the donor car to the wagon has been installed. So let's go over some situations here that would justify having a nicer one or why you should own a lower model. So one of the things that I get a lot, and we talked about this in a previous video, when I talked about why I did a 330 versus an M3, I get a lot of people that are saying like, why didn't you buy an M3? And I talk about it in that video, so if you want to check out that one. We talked about some of these similar things we're going to discuss today in that previous video, but I want to go deeper into that and talk more specifically why you should buy a lower model E46. Now, again, if you're going to buy one, daily drive one, collect it, obviously go and get the nicest, lowest mileage one that you can find. If you're going to be building a race car, it would be best for you to go and get basically the cheapest one you can. Obviously, if you've got $40,000 or $50,000 to spend on a E46, then go ahead and buy an M3 and do the modification you want. You don't want to buy an M3 if you're going to do a motor swap and a body kit. Like those two things right there would make me tell you don't do an M3, because you're just gonna ruin everything that was an M3. If you do a motor swap, the motor's gone, and if you do a body kit, the wide body's gone. So besides saying that the VIN, yeah, this VIN's an M3, there's really no other reason to do that. I've also brought up in previous videos that I watch another YouTube channel called Breaktraction, and at the moment he is building an GTR, an E46 GTR. And I've been talking to him recently and been asking him like, what kind of comments do you get like about your car? And he gets a lot of comments similar to mine, like, why are you doing this to a 325? Why didn't you buy an M3? He basically said similar things that I said, like by the time you pull the engine out and do the wide body, then the M3 is gone. So I want to read off this list. If you're doing a full race car build, these are the things that you'll end up swapping out. Even if you do buy an M3, you're gonna wanna swap all this out. You're gonna wanna do suspension, anti-roll bars, your brakes and rotors, whether that's just a replacement, like getting nicer pads and rotors, or actually doing a big brake kit, bigger, wider wheels, tires, so sticky tires, engine modification or engine replacement, transmission, bucket racing seats, different steering wheel, shifter, a different shifter or a shifter rebuild. And then there are other things like if you go to like some other things that don't really matter too much, like the headlights. And the headlights are more of a cosmetic thing. Like if you want the xenon on your E46, don't buy a higher model car to get xenon, because you can get projector lenses in aftermarket headlights, or actually do a mod where you can install the xenon onto your non-xenon headlights. Your rear view mirror, like oftentimes people will get wink mirrors as racing mirrors instead of just leaving the single rear view mirror. So by the time you replace all these things, whatever car it was originally is really only there as per the VIN. Even if you leave the engine in there, the essence, what was originally that car, is mostly gone. So I do want to talk about that. If you're going to replace an engine, absolutely go and get a 318, 325, 323. Go and get the lowest model beater 46 you can get your hands on and start there. If you're going to keep your engine, or if you want a different BMW engine, like if you're just dying to have an S54, you're going to pay for that, because these engines sell online for around $5 grand. And I think a cheap M3 is $5,000 to $6,000. We paid $6,500 for our donor car, which is roughly what an engine and transmission would be. So that's why we bought that donor car for $6,500, because by the time you do the engine, transmission, and everything else that we were able to pull off that car, you couldn't have found those parts individually offline for $6,500. And that's why we did that. But you're gonna pay $5 or $6 grand to get an S54 in your car. A 3-liter engine especially if you do something like my race car where it's supercharged. If you want to keep that engine, then I would probably suggest you either find a really cheap 330 or you find a 325 and then get yourself a 3-liter engine from eBay or wherever you want to find it. And then what that will do is it will actually give you the flexibility to continue to drive your car if you want to while you rebuild your 3-liter. Then you can swap them. And then you've got a 2.5-liter that you could potentially sell or steal parts from. That's kind of where I would go with a 330 if you wanted to have that 3-liter engine. But these people that are doing LS swaps, or if you're doing a different BMW V8, absolutely I would say to go and get the lowest model as cheap as you can get it, because you're basically ruining the car at this point. This ruins the car. As cool as my 330 is, this absolutely ruins the car. And I might talk about this in another video, how I've essentially ruined the ultimate driving machine. We'll get to that later. Now, as far as like a wagon goes, these only came in a 325 over here in the States. So if you're gonna do a 3-liter or a V8 or whatever, then you don't really have a choice. But I would absolutely recommend, if you're trying to do a budget, like slowly build your car, like, okay, I'm gonna spend a couple grand to get the car and I'm gonna spend this much and this much and this much. If you got a budget, then I would absolutely recommend you go and find a lower model BMW. The other thing I wanna say is just let the haters hate. It's crazy how while you're in the middle of a build, how many people are gonna hate on your car. When you're done, you could have a twin turbo LS swap wide body E46 coupe. And when you're done with it, everybody's gonna be like, oh, that's sick. But when you first start your build, like, oh, well, why did you get the 2.5-liter and why didn't you just buy an M3? Well, this right here is why we didn't buy an M3, and this right here is why my buddy didn't buy an M3, and this right here is why I'm telling you, if you're gonna build a race car, don't buy an M3 unless you're just absolutely dying to have that S54. If you're dying to have the S54, go ahead, go get a high mileage M3 and go pump some life back into it and see if you can't, you know, make it into a race car from somebody who's just not been taking very good care of it. But if you're gonna do something with an engine swap, or if you don't care to have that engine specifically, then that's what I would recommend you go and do. Which brings us over to our M3 donor. I wanna talk about this real quick because we are excited to get this project started. It might be a while. The owner of that M3, my cousin at this point, doesn't really have the budget to do it right now, but we're gonna be slowly doing it. We have stripped that car of everything that made it an M3, including selling the mirrors, which are still in the car right now, but they will be sold, they're gonna be gone. Besides the VIN and the front and rear fenders, that's kinda it. I mean, the hood, we still have the hood and the front bumper, but those are damaged, so we're gonna have to fix those. And those are something that we would have done, whether it was a 330 or whatever it ends up being, we would have done M3 parts. The rear bumper maybe, but everything that made that car an M3 is gone. And that gives us a really big opportunity to build kind of whatever we want, and the VIN will still say M3, which is really cool. So anyways, that is my advice, like it or not. I would say if you're gonna build a full race car, don't get an M3. So thanks everybody so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section below. This video was made mostly to answer some questions that I had from my other video in my other comment section. So if you're leaving comments that are either difficult to answer, me like replying back, or you want to see something specific, I can absolutely make another video. Like I said, I'm making this video replying to comments so that I can more specifically talk about why I think you shouldn't buy an M3 if you're going to build a full race car, or even a ZHP in some cases. Definitely comment if you have any comments or questions. Also, like the video, hit the subscribe button. We've got a ton of content coming up on this wagon, and there's a lot more E46 content to come. This is about 3/4 of the way done, and the M3 shell that we've got over there in the garage hasn't even started yet, and there'll be a full build on that eventually on our channel as well. And as well as my 330 coming back from storage. I had to put it away because I was working on these two and I didn't have room for it in my garage. Also check out our Instagram and our Patreon, link down in the description below. Thanks again so much for watching. We'll see everybody in the next video.